Barber looking at crime and punishment, and today we're going to be focusing on poaching and why the law was so harsh on poachers. Poaching had been around since the Forest Laws brought in by William I after he conquered England in 1066. It's the illegal hunting or capturing of wild animals on the land of someone else. It's often carried out by poor people so they could eat. However, poaching continued to be a widespread crime, and after 1700 it started to involve more gangs. Some people were being able to make quite good money from poaching. Poaching raids by gangs led to poaching being made a capital offence. In 1723, the Black Act made it illegal to hunt deer, hare and rabbits on land not owned by the person. This was punishable by death. Blackening faces in a hunting area and carrying snares and owning dogs suitable for poaching were now punishable by fines or even by death. Many historians describe poaching as a social crime because most people at the time didn't actually see any issue with it. As poverty increased, people turned to poaching just to survive. However, the authorities, made up of wealthy landowners, completely disagreed, and they were the ones who made it a capital crime. So, why would you think most people thought it was unfair? Firstly, people said the law was unfair because they were only protecting the interests of the landowners who were wealthy enough already. Many people considered poachers to be just poor ordinary folk who took the occasional rabbit or bird to add to their pot. Others saw poaching as a harmless sport, a contest to outwit gamekeepers using their local knowledge. Many people couldn't see the harm in a fellow selling the occasional rabbit just to make ends meet for their family. The public had sympathy for poachers and regarded the death penalty as far too harsh a punishment. The law stated that only landowners with land over £100 a year could hunt without restrictions. £100 a year would take a year for labourers to earn, and most people wouldn't even earn that. Landowners earning less than £100 and tenants couldn't even hunt on their own lands, and this was considered to be incredibly unfair. Possessing dogs or snares could get you a £5 fine or 3 months in prison. So why did they poach them? Well, small landowners and tenants often ignored the law and hunted on their own land. They didn't see any problem with it. Many hunted for rabbit for stew or a pheasant to have for dinner. A minority of better-off poachers hunted for sport and for entertainment. As we've already said, most poachers were poor and ordinary people. In fact, reports say that most poachers caught by gamekeepers were described as labourers, weavers, colliers, servants, or workers in other low-paid jobs. Faced with gamekeepers and the death penalty, some poachers used and resorted to violence. In 1786, a farm labourer horsewhipped a gamekeeper who tried to take in his hare. Later in 1792, 2 poachers shot a gamekeeper's horse and then aimed their guns at his window. The keeper failed to wake and look out. Gamekeepers and those who informed on the poachers for the rewards were generally hated in the local community, and villagers often gave alibis and lied in court to protect poachers from conviction. John Lightwood, a Staffordshire labourer, killed nearly 80 hares in 1764 before selling them for 3 shillings each. This is an example of how they were used on the black market. He was acting alone, however many others were in gangs, and these people made far more from poaching than they did in their everyday job. Gangs which formed favoured deer parks and game reserves owned by wealthy landowners. Demand for game grew as the population increased and as people started to have more sophisticated diets. By selling their catch in towns and cities, criminal gangs of poachers could make very high profiles. However, finally, 100 years later in 1823, the Black Act was repealed. It was part of reform by Robert Peel. Poaching was still illegal, but now it was no longer punishable by death. This is C.L. Barber, 1977. Thank you for watching.